You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers become the first franchise in history to win 6 Super Bowls.
Playoffs? What are you talking about? Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Touchdown! Kansas City! Damian Williams!
Forward, diving to the goal line! A touchdown! And a title for the Patriots!
Do you think having a 37-year-old
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to it's been a long season so far. We started week 12. We've gone this far. We're finally to the Super Bowl episode of NFL Unhinged, exclusively here on the Unhinged Sports Network, the home for NFL talk throughout this great platform that we all have. And you can catch us, next season you'll be able to catch us Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain Time. But we are going to have a great episode to wrap this thing up. Got almost a full panel. Not able to get Jim in. He had a family emergency going on, but don't worry, we still got his picks. I'll have the update for you on the scores for the playoff pick'em and who will be joining Kelcey and I to take the Wonderlick test, for Kelcey being last in the regular season, me being the host with no stake in it, and then we'll have the playoff last place person there as well. But it's going to be a packed episode, and we also got Zach Kyleman from the Gridiron Gallery podcast, Beyond the Press Box, my co-host Nico Bryant from the far end of the bench, obviously DJ with High-Low Sports, and Kelcey. So let's go ahead. Let's get right into it, because we got some we'll have our discussion about the game, but I also want to have a little bit of a talk about some of the general headlines, because past week in the NFL, like right after we got done recording last week, first bomb dropped where we saw a team, a player, free agent moves already being done. So it was perfect timing the way that worked out. But Matthew Stafford is no longer going to be a Lion. Jared Goff is no longer going to be a Ram. They swapped starting quarterbacks, but also 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick for Matthew Stafford. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Kelcey, what does this do to the quarterback market and free agency moving forward?
Forget anybody trying to get Deshaun for anything that was somewhat reasonable for an already unreasonable ask. I mean, this is an absolute just market-busting deal. This is equivalent to what the NBA did when they got their TV contract, having guys like, a 4th stringer sitting on the bench, the 12th man on the bench, making $8 million a year. This is the same equivalency to that. Like, nothing against Matt Stafford. I think he's a quality guy back in his day, but he's 32, going on 33 now, former first-round pick, injury-prone until, he can barely play a whole season nowadays, and you're getting rid of what was a 3-year starter and 4-year starter in Jared Goff, former number 1 pick, a guy who just led you to a Super Bowl, to another playoff berth. Yeah, your offense maybe was a little stagnant, but you can't put all of that on Jared Goff. And to give the first rounds, maybe you stop at the 2 first rounds, and I'm like, even then, that's iffy. Maybe the first and second round, I'm like, okay, possibly the first and third round, I've been like, that's a little better. But to lump it all together, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third, and a player, like, that's just crazy. I mean, if you'd have told me maybe the Lions had to give that up, or even give up part of that to the Rams, maybe I'm okay with it. But this is just insane. This is way above, I think, what any of us were expecting Matt Stafford to go for.
Yeah, I think one of the things that plays into this is obviously the Rams did have a championship window with Aaron Donald, and they made it to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. We talked about that. Nico, what does this do to the playoff window now? Does it kind of shrinken it, kind of push the process forward, or do you think that this could be a move long-term for Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, obviously the Rams probably gave up a little too much, but it all doesn't matter if you win a Super Bowl. It does not matter any first-round picks, third-round picks. This Rams team did beat the Seahawks in the playoffs on the road with Jared Goff playing at half strength. Now in this division, you have Stafford in there. Stafford's the second best quarterback in this division right now. Kyler Murray still has to prove himself a little bit. And then everyone else on top of that, I mean, we don't know what the San Francisco situation is. So when it comes to this division, it's going to be tough to see exactly how it all plays out. The championship window, like Jimmy said, Aaron Donald, you have a really good defense over there. One of the best in the league by far. And if you can maximize that opportunity just by a little bit with a better quarterback that will have better weapons, then what he had in Detroit ever since Calvin Johnson left, then that's a positive. 3 or 4 years from now, if the Rams don't win a Super Bowl, we'll look back on this like this is one of the worst trades in NFL history. But right now, if you have a chance to be at the top of your division, you're one solid quarterback away, consistent quarterback away from winning your division, then it's all worth it. Stafford is a quarterback who has shown a lot of good promise when he's had talent around him, and now in LA where he's going to be enjoying life, it's a win-win situation for him. And if you're the Lions, you're in the perfect spot. I mean, in my opinion, this is a win-win situation for both teams. The Lions, they get a young quarterback in Jared Goff. They get all these draft picks. If Jared Goff doesn't pan out, then you can go ahead and draft a quarterback next year. Like, it's one of the things where if it works out and you make the playoffs, good. If those draft picks turn into something, good. But if not, you're still in a spot where next year you could be looking at another great draft class and you could go select another one next year. So in the playoff picture wise, the Rams are still a playoff team, in my opinion. I think they have a better shot at dethroning the Seahawks now with Stafford. It's still going to take a lot, but like they said, we saw them beat them in the playoffs. Now you just got to see a regular season consistency because we've seen how good this defense is. Now if this offense can get to a little bit of its potential, then we could see a takeoff, especially Cam Akers in year 2 as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be – I think that both teams did benefit in the short run, get pretty talented overnight, or you either didn't lose anything or you gained a little bit. Zach, he's an former NFC North rival in the Detroit Lions. What do you see that they're getting in Los Angeles for Matthew Stafford? Now they're not going to be drafting the first round until 2027 or 2028, I believe. So what are they getting in Matthew Stafford?
Well, I personally still think you get a bit more of an explosive player. I understand that he's 33 years old going into this year, but I also see someone that I think gives you a little more upside than Jared Goff. Credit Jared Goff could go on to Detroit and make what is worth, but you also get what at least Sean McVay wants. He wants at least a proven stat-aholic, if you will. I won't say winner. I almost fell into that trap because he is not as successful, of course, in the playoffs whatsoever. Only has had 2 appearances with no wins. However, if you're talking about a guy that's, for the most part, knows how to run a competent offense when given his chance to do so, this is Matthew Stafford in a nutshell, in my opinion. I also think this is one of the best units he's going to be joining since his 2013 season with the Detroit Lions overall. You get at least up to next year a number 1 overall defensive unit, if you will. Overall, the Rams offensive line also took massive strides compared to their 2019 selves. They went more run first, pass second, which for this stage in Matthew Stafford's career, you might wonder, hey, maybe that's the best case scenario. Stafford historically has never really had much of a running option in Detroit, unless you talk about 1 season or 2 with Reggie Bush that have been at least logistically the best. But I think this is overall a good pickup. And also for the fact when we talk about Jared Goff, he needs a new start. That you could tell that the relationship was breaking down as the playoffs wore on or going into the back half of the season. I mean, we're talking about John Wolford, who I respect a lot being an Lions player, but the fact we're talking about him being a starter or competing next year, and you have Jared Goff sitting there with a mammoth contract of sorts on the sideline and potentially being a backup, they needed to do something here. And really, I think the Lions, as much as they're going to be having Goff for 2 years being potentially a bridge, maybe the starter moving forward, you know, they do get 2 first-round draft picks out of the deal because really they just took on a salary dump so that they could get a second pick, which, you know, that's how I see Nico saying it's a win-win in that case. You get the picks, you know, you get a stable quarterback as well. You know, the Rams get what they want, where McVay thinks that he's going to be able to capitalize and up the game on the offensive front so that they can get that next step and finally not just get to the Super Bowl, but win a potential Super Bowl in a very much heavily contested NFC West anyway. It's just overall, this I think is a win-win for both of them. I see this as like the Khalil Mack trade for the Bears. Eventually we'll find out who really wins a few years down the line, because this is one of them, like the Bears was for the Rams. It's a win now. When it comes to the fact of the Lions or comparing to the Raiders, this was planning for years down the road. We'll be seeing this. I would say in 5 years, you'll know who really got the better end of the stick. But right now I see them as win-win.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that go into this where the success might not be measured right away. We might have to see a little bit of that play out over time. DJ, I wanted to bring you in to talk about Jared Goff and what the Lions get now. What do you think this does to a Lions roster that honestly not necessarily talentless? They're getting better, but they're definitely not as talented as Los Angeles Rams. What are we going to see from Jared Goff over in Detroit?
I think we'll kind of see the same Jared Goff. I feel like he's already reached his peak, but it's not a bad peak. He's as good as what you put around him. He's never going to elevate anyone, but he's never going to bring you down. So if the new Lions regime is any sort of competence, which would go against the Lions' history, I think they'll be fine moving forward because they do have a few pieces. They just need to continue to keep stacking the Legos on top of each other and build something there. And then Jared Goff will be fine. He's only 27, something along those lines. He's not old by any means. He could be there. Let's say he shows some good stuff next year. They can use those picks and build around him and give him basically like the 2017 Rams roster, more or less, and just build around him and put him in spot to be successful. Like everyone's mentioned, if he's terrible, then they could just cut him in a couple years and get a new quarterback. They'll figure their way out of it. It's the Lions, though, so we'll see if they can make those picks work. History says not necessarily. And then for Matthew Stafford, we're going to find out exactly how good he really is, because the talk's always been kind of like what we see with Bradley Beal. How he's so good, if only he got away from the Lions, freed Matt Stafford for his entire career. Well, now we'll find out, because if he's as good as a lot of us think he is, Rams are going 13-3 next year and rolling through people. Or if part of the problem was his fault, the Rams are going to implode and they're going to look kind of silly with absolutely no picks for the greater part of a decade. No first-round picks, I should say.
Yeah, that was a bold strategy from them. Obviously, they've done it before where Les Snead, I believe that's the GM in Los Angeles. Everybody knows Sean McVay is going to try and be the smartest person in the room. So it could end up being really good or really bad for them. But that was definitely laying all your cards and your nuts on the table. Like, okay, this is what we're going with. We think we're good enough. We play for a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. We just need this quarterback. It's a lot of faith you're putting into a guy who really hasn't had any success. Now I'll kind of change this one up because we're going to talk about more quarterbacks, but I want Nico and DJ to both give me a case as to why you don't want your team to pick up Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz is being shopped from Philadelphia, and you two, the Colts and the Broncos, both have stakes in what happens with this. So I'll start with we'll let DJ start for the Colts. DJ, why should the Colts not pick up Carson Wentz?
Because they want 2 first-round picks. Like, my God, it's even for Matthew Stafford, 2 first-round picks I thought was steep, let alone the 5,000 picks they got. Carson Wentz literally just had a season that could be quantified as ass. He got benched at week 13, and everyone was calling for his benching week 2. Yet there's no leverage to trade him. He demands a trade, wants a super salary. It's not trading for him. It's offering those 2 first-round picks or 1 and something else. If you want to take a third and a washing machine, maybe we could talk about it. But I feel like offering 2 firsts, it's the asking price more or less, because I don't think Carson's washed. I think he could still bounce back. He's similar to Jared Goff and Stafford. Get him somewhere else. We'll see if he has anything left or if he's just was a one-off in 2017, more or less. So I'm not saying don't trade for him. Just don't trade what they want necessarily. See if you can get him for like a third and maybe a following year's conditional third if he plays and doesn't suck. My problem was the asking price for Carson Wentz when he was, by all statistical measures, absolutely egregious.
Nico, why don't you want the Broncos to pick up a guy like Carson Wentz?
First of all, I'll make the case for him to go to Colts because I think there's a better shot.
Don't put that evil on me. Don't put that evil on me. I already got no.
So right now the Broncos have a quarterback. The Colts, is Jacoby Brissett the answer in Indianapolis?
He's a free agent, so he doesn't count.
So you don't have a quarterback on your roster.
I got Jacob Eason from Washington. He can sling it.
The Broncos have an option. So right now, if I'm looking at Drew Lock and Carson Wentz, if you're a Broncos fan, you ride with Drew Lock for another year. You don't trade your assets away. You only trade for a quarterback if you upgrade the position. And Drew Lock to Carson Wentz is not that big enough of an upgrade. Not at all. That's not where you go for. If you're the Broncos, you stick with Drew Lock for another year. We were in the stakes for Matthew Stafford as well, but that would have been an upgrade. If you're the Broncos, you either ride with Drew Lock or you upgrade the position or you get a veteran quarterback backup. You don't get a guy who's a little bit older than your currently starting quarterback and just as good. So that's where I see it. Like with the Colts and the Bears especially too, Zach can chime in on this too. But with Trubisky, that's probably an upgrade there. I don't see the upgrade here with Drew Lock to Carson Wentz necessarily. Yeah, Carson Wentz had that one great season, but Drew Lock is 4 years younger, and he could have one of these seasons too. So I'd rather keep your draft picks, do all that, and see what you have from Drew Lock and then rebuild if he's not it. Because Carson Wentz would be just a trial run, and giving up first-round picks especially makes no sense at all for the Broncos. Giving up first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, that's a completely different story. Giving up first-round picks for Carson Wentz, who you may not even be your starter, not worth it at all. But like between Zach, myself, and DJ, I think the Colts are the most likely destination just because they're scrambling without a quarterback unless Andrew Luck comes back. Have been reports about that. I know DJ would love to see that. There's been a few reports about that. But I think that's the most likely destination if Andrew Luck doesn't come back for Wentz to go to the Colts, because the Colts, I mean, I may be wrong here, but I think they were trying to go big on Stafford because they feel like their defense is damn good. And they have a good shot at making a big run. They just need a stable quarterback. And I don't know if Carson Wentz is the answer. I think Colts fans, especially Jim Irsay, would rather beg Andrew Luck on your hands and knees to get him to come back besides trade for Carson Wentz. So there's
I'm trying to find his address so I can show up and beg. It's hard to find that guy. He's the most private human of all time. Like, it's not possible. He lives in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Carson can't come to Indy. I'm just saying not for their asking price. Like, he can be fine if they want to take a third, but when you were statistically butthole for 90% of last year, can't give you 2 first-round picks. Yeah. The numbers on his stat line say, what the fudge is this?
Yeah, especially with, Philly, like, he wants to get out of Philly badly. At this point, I think we may see a situation where the asking price is way too high and the Eagles may have to cut him. I think that'd be interesting. I think we could see a situation where that is no one wants to give up enough for him, where we see we see him hit the free agent market and they just cut his big contract. I think that'd be interesting with all. I mean, if the Broncos want to do that for a backup, but don't trade draft picks for a quarterback who is going to be competing for your starting quarterback job. Who probably won't be your starting quarterback.
I agree with you that I'd take Drew Lock over Carson Wentz. We agree on that one for sure, though.
We'll talk about the Broncos a little bit later when we get to another quarterback that's rumored to be on the move. But I do want to pose a question to Zach. The Bears possibly are in a quarterback searching mode. Would you mind having Carson Wentz move over to Chicago from Philly?
Well, here's the thing. They actually are one of the guys that are potentially going to go after Carson Wentz of the multiple teams reported. And look, I don't really want him. The reason I don't want him is the price right now. I'm with DJ. It's more about the price. I think that the Eagles overinflated the market for him, and teams, unfortunately, are biting on it, or they just don't see Deshaun Watson as a realistic option right now. So the next best one you can go for without paying Dak Prescott a bunch of money is Carson Wentz if you wanted. I would say it's better off, and I think if teams were smart about this and weren't as desperate when it comes to QB, which the Bears really, it's anything goes anymore. The next season is going to be kind of a cluster of what the hell is going to happen, who the hell knows what's going to happen based on a few of the free agent moves, and they're going to have some cap casualties that are going to be coming up that I'm going to be shedding a tear or two on, I imagine. But the QB situation was already in question. Nick Foles, if Carson Wentz comes, by the way, Foles is probably out because Foles' contract is stipulated that he is going to be the starter this year. If he is not, he has the opt-out option to leave Chicago, which I imagine he doesn't want to go and fight for starting position again with Carson Wentz, since those two already have a famous history, if you will, for a few years. But I don't want Wentz for the price. I've been saying this all along. Their next best date is wait till June 1st and cut him, because the Eagles won't lose any money on him. The reason they're inflating, of course, is because they want something back. But the next best date for teams, they should be saying, you know what, screw you. I'm going to wait until June and call your bluff. The Eagles will then have to be forced into a decision. What do we do with one of these two QBs? Which in that case, from what the trade stipulation sounds like, they'll probably end up cutting Carson Wentz. Will they do it? Probably not, because now you got 3 teams that are bidding. It sounds like it's definitely going to happen this week. It just is going to be depending on who. I don't want him in Chicago if they're going to ask for a first-round draft pick, even just one. It's not worth my time. I feel like that'd be throwing it away. But the Bears are kind of in an awkward situation no matter what.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of teams are going to be interested, but I do think the fact that the Eagles do have that opt-out and it's public, to where if they get to a certain date and cut them, they don't lose any of their money. That's going to be what they're looking for. I want to stick in the NFC East because Zach mentioned another quarterback that's going to have to get moved, and Kelcey is a Cowboys fan. So let's talk about the Dak Prescott situation. What do we? And you're finally on the hot seat, like we normally put Zach on with. We won't say his name. I'll go 1 week without saying his name. But
I don't care if you do. I'm numb to it at this point, Jimmy. Just go with it.
All right, Jay Cutler. You're getting Jay Cutler here with Dak Prescott. What do you think the Cowboys and Dak? Do you think they reach a decision, or do you think we're going to see Dak in another uniform?
Look, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm doing absolutely everything I can to sign Dak. But if I'm Dak, I say fuck you, Cowboys. 100%. I say you guys put me in this position. Screw you. I'm gonna go get my money. Go get paid $35 million on a 2-year deal, and get paid $35 million for 2 years at some other team. And I'm gonna go walk in free agency. And I hate to say it that way. I love Dak. I love Dak. I just hated the price that he kept asking for. He wasn't a guy that deserved the $35 million at that point. If he had had a season just like he was on pace to have, my mind would have changed completely. And that's why I'm leaning this way. Is I think when it came down to it, if it wasn't for this injury, Dak 100% deserves to get paid. But up until this injury, I'm like, what I would be trying to do if I'm the Cowboys is, hey Dak, let's give you a 1-year, $25 million deal that can reach $35 million with incentives. And the incentives being, you perform like you were last year, and you easily reach that $35 million. And then once that $35 million, once we have this season, we will negotiate. Because obviously, if he can perform and hit all those incentive bonuses, get paid $35 million, why would I not try to be like, okay, yeah, you're a $35 million a year guy? Like at that point, of course, try to sign him. But I think at this point, the Cowboys have kind of screwed the pooch on this one and let it go too long without really even talking to him. I mean, it's going to be a sad day if I watch Dak in another uniform, because I do think he is a great quarterback for what the Cowboys need right now. I just didn't think he needed to be paid that much before last season. And I think that was kind of my stipulation, was he had to have a show me season. And unfortunately, the injury came up. And so now I'm like, I'm on Dak's side with this. Like, if he walks away, I don't blame him completely. But I think for Dallas, they're going to be scrambling. If Dak walks away from the table, I don't know what they're going to do. But unfortunately, it might end up being Carson Wentz. And that terrifies me.
I don't know. Stephen Jones, I mean, the Jones family is very, very tight with their pocketbook, especially except if you don't deserve it. If you don't deserve it, they'll write a check for however much money you want.
Jason Witten wants to come back and play another year?
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, we'll pay you $30 million just to come sit the bench for a year.
Hey,
that's exactly what will happen.
What's the salary on his one-day retirement contract? Because I'm sure they're paying him something.
Too freaking much is the salary. Like, if it's $2, that's $2 too much. I mean, look, I love what he did for the franchise, but no, you're exactly right. Steve, the Joneses are absolutely awful when it comes to giving worthy guys their contracts and giving unworthy guys contracts. They'll give an unworthy guy a huge contract any day of the week.
That's why they survived so long and were so good with Jimmy Johnson, because Jimmy Johnson didn't let the Joneses run as much as they are right now. Let's go. Speaking of too much, let's go to Deshaun Watson. We've all brought it up at least at some point. What do you need to get rid of Deshaun Watson at this point? What is realistically what the Texans are going to get in return in whatever trade deal they make? Zach, you seem like you have an answer ready. So what do the Texans get in this trade?
Well, I think they can get the 2 first-round draft picks. That's not out of speculation. The guy's in his prime. He was MVP levels at times during the course of the previous season. That's not out of the question. The question is, what do you ask on the back half of that trade? Because the parts that stick with me that I'm out is when you go, the first round picks, it's cool. Then you get into the second round picks. Okay, maybe I give you 1. I don't give you 2 of them. Okay, let's halt down. You're still having a guy that wants to get the hell out of Dodge. This isn't like you're having someone that the organization wants to shop around to restart. This is a guy that wants to get out of the city. So you have to play your hand and go, okay, he wants to leave. It's just going to get worse for you. So 1 second-round draft pick would be mine, and then the defensive starters. Okay, and that's even more excessive to me. It's like, no, I do not know many trades in the NFL where a team gets exactly what they want, because the Texans, of course, are going, we want all the draft capital and 2 defensive starters to help quickly change over that bottom 5 defense from last year. And so we are stuck and we can instantly improve. No, you're either going to hit a reboot or you're going to stay status quo and make this get uglier. My idea is this: pull back on your price. If you want to ask for potential, here's the deal I would go with. Either you go with something along the lines of, we'll go with 2 first-round draft picks, maybe like a 4th and a starter. I think that takes some value down. That's more, at least it's more reasonable. And it could be a young starter, someone that's a little more of a star level type, if you will. If you want to go with just the starters, Go 2 first-round draft picks and maybe try the 2 starters. Don't do the 2 second-rounders as well. You have to play value a little bit because, like I said, these teams are going to want Deshaun, but they know that he wants to get out. So the player leverages a bit of your bargaining price. You cannot ask for everything you want because in this scenario, teams know what you are dealing with behind the curtain. It is very public. This is not something that people are hiding away. They know Deshaun doesn't want to be in Houston anymore. Pull back your value, take the first-round draft picks that you're asking for because you'll get them, but figure out what you want with the back half of that deal because you're not going to get the dream scenario. That's just not happening here.
So, Nico, we were kind of texting back and forth about this because Von Miller's been all over social media or changing his social media, and that just makes the Denver media drool when that happens. But I was bringing up possible trade scenarios for Deshaun Watson. So I'll pose one now that we talked about. 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick. You sign and trade Justin Simmons, and you trade away Von Miller. If you're the Broncos and that's what it takes to get Deshaun Watson, do you take that deal?
First of all, Von Miller, all those Instagram stuff was because of the lawsuit going on. He reposted all the Broncos stuff, so it was not because of the Broncos. I'll tell you that right now. Get that out of the way right now. But in my opinion, Justin Simmons is the leader of the defense. That should not happen. Von Miller those are 2 Pro Bowlers. We're not talking about young guys anymore. We're talking about 2 Pro Bowlers. Von Miller is a Pro Bowler. Justin Simmons is a Pro Bowler. That's different. This is a completely different story. But when it comes to Deshaun Watson, you send all the fucking draft picks you want. Excuse my language. You send them 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 6th, 4th, all of them. I don't care because Deshaun Watson is in his prime, ladies and gentlemen. He had the best. He had over 2,000 plus. I don't even know the exact stat. Led the league in passing yards. If you can add that quarterback to a team, you do it right away. If you're a halfway decent team and you have a possibility to get him, and that will take your team to the next level to the Super Bowl. That's just a fact of the matter. It is. The way I see it is the Texans should not be debating defensive players. They have no right to be doing that. Unless you're sending me J.J. Watt back, you're not getting 2 starters, especially 2 Pro Bowlers. No shot in hell. That's not going to work at all. But when it comes to what the Texans should be wanting is those 1st, 2nds, and 3rds, and then a young quarterback. Teams I see there, Broncos with Drew Lock, Jets with Sam Darnold, Bears maybe with Trubisky. That's the way I see it. You have to get a quarterback back because there's no other quarterback on the fucking roster with the Texans that's going to win you a game. You're basically saying we're going to tank for next year as well if you're just trading to Deshaun Watson. You might as well get a young quarterback back and just see what you got from here. And maybe you go – I don't even know what team Josh Rosen is on, but give him a shot and wherever he's at, go trade for him and see what he's got out there. You have to get a quarterback back in this situation. Demanding 2 starters, especially from the Broncos, who are 2 Pro Bowlers. One guy who's a Super Bowl MVP. That's not going to work. Not going to fly at all. When it comes to the Broncos, I would rather a deal between 3 firsts, 2 seconds, Drew Lock, and then maybe a Draymond Jones, who's a great defensive tackle, and then maybe throw in Alexander Johnson or Josie Jewell. And throw and see what you can get from there. You keep the untouchables for the Broncos are Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, Justin Simmons, and all that. And the one thing people aren't talking about enough that obviously I see because I'm a Broncos fan is Kareem Jackson has been making his way into Sean's DMs a little bit. Former Texans teammates, Kareem Jackson has a great relationship with Deshaun Watson. It's known news, and Deshaun has been thinking about the Broncos situation. I mean, an offense with Deshaun Watson alongside Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, and Cortland Sutton, a Pro Bowl receiver coming back. That's a much better offense than the Texans have ever had in Deshaun Watson.
Don't forget about Albert Okwuegbunam.
Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. So that's one of the most intriguing spots. If you go to the Jets, you can be with Salah, but you won't have the offensive weapons you'd have in Denver. And obviously that's biased, but I can't name any fucking receiver on the Jets right now besides the guy they drafted last year. Now I can't remember the name at the top of my head. Mims. So it's Sims. There you go, or Mims or whatever. So if you're looking at possibility to make a difference, I see the Broncos as it. The Bears make the next biggest case for it because of that good defense over there. But the Broncos have the best offensive weapons you can get on this market right now, and that's why Deshaun Watson makes a lot more sense.
Can I step in for a second?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to point out the irony of Nico suggesting Mitch Trubisky being traded for Deshaun Watson in this entire.
I had to do it right now.
Like, seriously, you're going to bring that.
to do that for you.
God,
Two easy ways to get under Zach's skin. Bring up
I should
Trubisky
also-
being drafted number 2 and bring up Jay Cutler. That's the easiest way to get under Zach's skin.
I wanted to bring the irony up, but also you got to remember Mitch is a free agent as of the end of the season right now. So technically he's free to go wherever the hell he wants. Chicago doesn't have any stipulation. I just found it ironic that was like, if we're going to get a young QB, let's put him there.
That would have been like if the Rams and Eagles traded Wentz and Goff.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. DJ, real quick before we kind of start transitioning into talking about the game on Sunday, because obviously there's a Super Bowl happening this week. I forgot. I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but obviously everybody knows who's tuning into this show. What do you think is the best landing spot for Deshaun Watson, and what's most likely in your mind?
I think anywhere Deshaun Watson goes is the great spot for him because that's Deshaun Watson. He makes everywhere good. And I think it's going to take I don't think one team's going to be able to trade for him because after we saw Stafford go for, I think the NFL is going to have to take a page from the NBA playbook and start doing some 3-team trades, bring in others and start cycling around that way. So an underrated one I think would be a good fit for him would be the Raiders of all teams because John Gruden loves it. I know Nico's hating himself inside for me saying that, but John Gruden loves Deshaun Watson. You have Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs. You got a squad. They're a good offensive line, an absolutely terrible defense, but that's going to be terrible for a while anyway. I think Deshaun Watson would be a good fit with the Raiders. They have a little bit to trade too. I think it's going to take 3 teams. I don't think anyone's going to be able to trade their entire roster and get Deshaun there. And if they do, he'll end up back on the Texans basically after they trade everything away. So I think the Raiders could be a interesting fit for him. I don't think anyone has enough to trade for him straight across, though. I think they're going to have to get some other teams involved.
I think the Raiders are just too worried about giving up too much because they were number 2 in the division at one point and they were on the cusp of the playoffs, and maybe they try to run it back with Derek Carr another year, but they just don't want to give up that much draft capital because John Gruden loves his draft picks and all that good stuff.
But he hates Derek Carr for some random reason, so he'll probably be looking to get rid of him anytime.
That's true.
That man loves himself some Deshaun Watson more than anybody else, I think.
Especially after seeing Deshaun Watson get kicked in the face and then throw a touchdown pass on his defense a couple of years ago, too.
I sneakily like this. It's just that I'll be interested what they'll have to cut to give Watson the space. They'll obviously do it. It's just they're going to have to do some cap flipping to get that to work.
Either way, Deshaun versus Patrick Mahomes twice a year on the Broncos or the Raiders, sign me up.
Here's a random one I saw on Twitter and we talked about on our podcast earlier this week. So I'm going to bring it up again because it's absolutely hilarious. It's a 3-team trade that gets Deshaun on the Raiders. So the Raiders would get Deshaun Watson, Indy's 3rd-round pick, and Houston's 3rd-round pick. Houston gets Marcus Mariota, 1st-round picks in 2021, 22, 23, and a 2022 4th, and the Colts end up with Derek Carr. So everyone gets a player they need. Houston gets a rip of picks and a young quarterback, and Las Vegas gets a quarterback.
I mean, when you break it down piece by piece, it makes a lot of sense. And then going back through, it does kind of satisfy everybody's immediate need. Obviously, I don't know. The 3-way trades always make me interested because obviously the Colts would rather just have Deshaun Watson than what they would get in return for that trade. I don't know how that would fly in the league. Honestly, that's the only thing that I'm kind of hung up on.
0% chance it happens. I just want to throw it out there just because if somehow lightning strikes 8 times in a bottle, I look like a genius for stealing this from someone else off Twitter.
Well, and you're not crazy because, I mean, the Jared Goff scenario was basically a salary dump version of the NBA. So, I mean, we're already in that territory now.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the one hard part about this is you said realistic returns for Deshaun Watson. The fact is, Matt Stafford trade blew up the idea of a realistic market for Deshaun Watson. Like, honestly, the Texans can be like, you know what? I don't care what you guys give us if it's not what we want. If we don't get 4 first rounds and 3 second rounds and 2 thirds, we're going to keep him for 2 years because he's stuck. He is obligationally, contractually stuck here. And he can sit the bench. We don't care. We're going to pay him. We'll until anybody wants to give us what we want, we can do whatever we want. And that's just like, this is a sad part of this whole contract is there's no realistic expectations in returns that anybody can put together by just one team, as DJ pointed out. No one team has the capital to really do this except for maybe the Jets or possibly a 3-team trade. And that's what's sad is there's no one team that has enough anything without completely killing themselves to give up for this. And to call anything realistic it makes this conversation tough because nothing realistic just happened in the NFL. Like I would have never guessed Matt Stafford goes for 5 picks and a player.
No, maybe in 2009 or whatever. Maybe when he was younger, that could have been something. But
I also heard rumors that it didn't, like the Stafford thing didn't play into the trade talks, but I highly doubt that's true.
Yeah. I mean, there's a report out there that the Jets offered 4 first-round picks and 2 seconds and Sam Darnold to the Texans, and they turned it down. If that's true, I mean, obviously, if that's true, that just proves my point. They're not thinking realistically. I mean, odds are it's a little blown out of proportion, but maybe it was 3 first-round picks and a second and Sam Darnold. And even that is like...
What you're saying is right. I mean, contractually, they can just stand up and bully everybody. They don't really have to do anything.
And then throw J.J. Watt into the mix, too, because he wants out, too. So there's another person that wants out that's gonna have a high asking price.
Yeah, and the fact is they're both under contract. Well, J.J. Watt next year he has an option, but Deshaun he's under contract until 2023 where he has a player option. Yeah, a potential player option at the end of 2023. So
no, he's in a pretty bad, almost as bad a situation as I would say Carson Palmer was when he pulled the retire and then, or if you don't trade me, I'm gonna retire. I knew that all too well as a Bengals fan. That was one of my worst experiences watching football. That was bad. Let's transition into Sunday's game. Super Bowl Sunday. Tampa Bay Buccaneers host. Well, they are not hosting the Super Bowl. We can probably talk about that storyline going on with the stadium, but playing in their own stadium, Raymond James Field, against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think no matter who came out of the conference championship games, we were going to get the 2 best teams that were left, obviously, because they did win that game. But I think Tampa Bay matches up pretty well with Kansas City and vice versa. They both have areas where they are good, and they're good in areas where the other team is probably not up to par. So we'll talk about plenty of the storylines going on. We'll start with one of the more unfortunate ones. Britt Reed, the Kansas City Chiefs assistant coach, unfortunately got into a car accident, and it came out that he was under the influence. There's some other extenuating circumstances along with this story. If you want the full details, you can go ahead and look it up. It's just not something that I'd rather talk about. When we're trying to be a little bit upbeat and have some fun, talk about the game that's coming up. But he is no longer going to be on the sidelines. Let's talk a little bit about if this is going to be an extra distraction for the Kansas City Chiefs, because Andy Reid is still going to be coaching. He's still going to be there. But how much do we think this is going to affect him being on the sidelines thinking about the game? Kelcey, I'll start with you because you and I were kind of talking about this before everybody else jumped on the call. What do you think this does for Kansas City on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, this is their inside linebackers coach. So this is not just like a position that's not important for the Chiefs. So this is unfortunately, he decided to take this step in his life and get in this moment, and he has to own that responsibility. But yeah, this is going to be a distraction. I mean, at this point in time, one of your coaching staff members is gone, and it's a coach of a position group. It's not like an assistant to the position group where if they miss, it's like whatever. But this is an actual position group coach for a position in the Chiefs that needs some stability there. I mean, that outside linebacking group is honestly for the Chiefs, that's probably one of their weakest positions that needs somebody to guide them along the way up during the game. It's sad. I mean, this is a sad situation to begin with, and you hate to see it, but unfortunately it's not the first time with this with Britt Reid happened to him in the past, and he just continues to make bad mistakes. And hopefully, Andy Reid, we love Andy Reid so much. This is not something you want to see happen to him all the time. You hate to see one of Andy Reid's family members keep getting into trouble, but they just can't get out of their own way. So this is unfortunate for that. But to answer your question of is this going to be a distraction? Of course. Anytime a position coach is missing, of course it's going to be a distraction.
Yeah, I think that we're all on the same page. Andy Reid's one of those guys in football that everybody can just get behind and root for because he's done everything the right way, and it is frustrating with his family situation. So that brings me to my next question. A guy that a lot of people thought were high on the list for head coaching candidacy, Eric Bieniemy. Zach, do you think that he kind of steps up a little bit more with the fact that Andy Reid's going to be distracted? Do you think that we maybe see him take that next step up the ladder and prove that he can be a head coach?
Well, I think it'll take some pressure off of Andy Reid. Again, that's a family scenario that you're dealing with in, a pretty big setting. You're set another Super Bowl run, another chance to get another championship, one that has just as many stakes because you're trying to be the first back-to-back since the Patriots did it back in 03 and 04. And it's again, a family matter that's being taken place. Eric Bieniemy has called games by himself before, so yeah, he's going to have to take that extra step. And I think if he has to do that, which I think he most likely will, that does help prove his coaching ability. I would say, this is an ongoing debate for 2 years now. Is why is Eric Bieniemy still sitting as an offensive coordinator on the Kansas City Chiefs? Great scenario, by the way, but he's a guy that, for the most part, people believe should be at a head coaching role at this point, and we shouldn't keep talking about this. But it seems to still be coming up. I think this is another chance, as much as the scenario is not at all what you would expect or want it to be for him to have to step into this position. This is a coaching moment where you're going to have to say, okay, this is my offense right now. I'll get the pressure off of Reid at the moment. Andy Reid obviously can give his own advice because he has done that. Of course, this is his offense that he runs, but he also lets coaches learn from it too and get more experience that way. But I think this is a great moment to say, all right, your time to shine. It's time to step up and take that spotlight. And what a perfect test to have against Todd Bowles, one of the most blitz-happy defensive coordinators I have seen in recent NFL history, and a guy that has helped to elevate the Bucks ever since he's joined up with Bruce Arians' staff once more.
Yeah, he's basically the Bruce Arians on the defensive side of the ball, because Bruce Arians is known for being the guy who just wants to chuck it as far as he can down the field. And if Greg Williams wasn't a defensive coordinator, I would have given Todd Bowles the moniker Dr. Heat. But when you blitz 7 in a Hail Mary situation, you're going to be Dr. Heat no matter what. Nico, my question for you, seeing the Chiefs twice a year as a Broncos fan, do you think that them having guys like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, do you think that this maybe makes the fact that Andy Reid's going to be distracted, Britt Reid's not going to be there, they have guys that are in those leadership positions that can kind of keep the team on the right path?
Well, I'll add in another factor to all this. On any other year besides this year, where you have assistant coach like this or a position group coach like this go out with an unfortunate incident, it hurts your team. This year, it doesn't. You want to know why? Because every team has been preparing for something like this every single week. There has been more assistant coaches on the COVID list this year than I can count. And with the Chiefs, obviously Super Bowl, but it hurts. But it's that much of next man up. You can't tell me that the Chiefs weren't prepared. They didn't have guys behind each position group to be ready to step in case one of the coaches had COVID contract tracing. That's the fact of the matter is the Chiefs are prepared. Although yes, it's Andy Reid's brother, and that will play a factor with it. I think it'll be just fine. I mean, obviously they would like to have him on the field with them. That linebacker crew obviously built a good relationship with him and blah blah blah. But in the end of the day, it's the biggest game of the year. It's one game. You have 48 minutes to win the biggest game of the year and call yourselves back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And for that reason, a linebacker coach missing a game, in my opinion, doesn't hurt that much. If it was a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, I'm not sure the defense coordinator's name on top of my head, but if it was one of them, that makes a difference. But considering it was a position group coach, it's just the next man up. It's the next man up because COVID tracing, all that and everything. But like you said, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, that defense has its leaders. Danny Sorensen, Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jones. I mean, you go on and on. That defense will be just fine. They're prepared, and they'll be prepared. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for it all. This happened. Was it on Friday or was it Thursday? I'm not entirely sure. Was it?
I believe it was
Thursday. Thursday. Okay, might have been Friday.
Yeah,
Friday.
Thursday to confirm.
Thursday to confirm. So if this was today, the day we're recording this, the Saturday night before, that plays a different factor. It was Thursday. You still have 3 days before it all to get those linebacker core prepared that you're not going to have your position coach. I think that makes a little bit of difference. But either way, it's going to hurt Andy Reid not having him there, but he's on the other side of the ball. Andy Reid was worried about the offense, worried about all that. Eric Bieniemy is in charge of all that. That's completely two different sides of the story.
Yeah, so now we'll get into more of the gameplay on the field for the Chiefs. We'll go Chiefs up until the break, and then we'll talk about the Bucs a little bit before we get to the pick'em. DJ, who do you think on this Chiefs offense is going to be the main X factor? Is it going to be Patrick Mahomes, or is it going to be maybe one of his many weapons that we see? Because not going in there without two All-Pro tackles that they've lost both of them to injury this season. What do you think? Who do you think is going to be the biggest X factor on the Chiefs offense?
I think the obvious answers are, of course, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, as I posed the question last week, arguably one of the better receiving duos we've ever seen. But just for factors besides those two obvious ones, I'm going to go with Sammy Watkins. I know he's questionable to play, but when you go looking at the past couple of years' playoff stats, he's like the third leading receiver as far as playoff goes. Last year, he made his presence known in the Super Bowl run and in the Super Bowl game itself, smoking Richard Sherman for 67 yards. So Sammy Watkins always seems to find a way to make key plays. He's not quite lived up to that fourth overall pick in the draft receiver he's supposed to be, but with the Chiefs as basically their second, third, fourth receiver, he still has the ability to break away on just about anyone. He can go off for $150 and 2 touchdowns at any moment, especially because if Tampa Bay is smart, whether Tyreek is outside, in the slot, in the backfield, or playing quarterback, they will have a safety over the top of him after what he did to them last time. So that will draw a lot of coverage. So in theory, I'm going to say Sammy Watkins is poised to possibly have himself a breakout game as kind of the X factor for the Chiefs on offense.
Yeah, I think you can go either Sammy Watkins or McCole Hartman, because Hartman made his presence and reminded everybody that he's also that an extra explosive element. So any of those second or third receivers for the Chiefs have a chance to make a huge impact in this game. Kelcey, I'll go to you for X factor on the Chiefs defensive side of the ball. Is it Chris Jones with that inside pass rush? I mean, we talked about Frank Clark a couple years ago as one of the main factors for their surge up into the AFC Championship game against New England. Who's going to be the defensive X factor for the Chiefs?
Yeah, actually, one of two guys, and one's going to be Dirty Dan Sorensen because you got to have a safety over the top in this team. As we've seen Scotty Miller, we've seen all these passes just happen to break away for Tom Brady in the most crucial moments. These guys are getting over the top. And so you got to have a safety over the top of them. And also Jared Sneed, the rookie young cornerback. Can he continue his progression and can lock down one of these 4? I'm going to include Scotty Miller in this list. 4 receivers that will kill you for Tampa Bay. I mean, look, you got Mike Evans, you have Antonio Brown, you have Godwin, you have those 3 are the obvious ones. But the one that's come on in the playoffs that Tom has trusted since week 2 has been Scotty Miller, and I don't know why he trusts him, but he just goes into the list of short slot receivers that Tom Brady has had that he just absolutely loves to throw the ball to for some reason. So add him to the list. Also Tyler Johnson as well. He's a guy that comes off the bench for the Bucs. So
Cameron Brate too.
Yeah, Cameron Brate. Yeah, I'm not even counting the tight ends that they can literally throw your mother at this point in time. But yeah, Jared Sneed, he has to have somebody. He has to shut somebody down. Whoever he's matched up against, he has to shut them down. He has to continue the progression I talked about. The reason why I gave him Defensive Rookie of the Year in our award show, he needs to continue that progression in this game, because if he's lets down, that he's either leaving open one of the tight ends you mentioned, if he happens to be matched up against them, if they play that scheme, or one of the slot receivers, or maybe outside Antonio Brown outside. And all of those options are terrifying to let open. You don't want to let any one of them open, and if he can just shut one down, that takes away at least one aspect of Tom Brady's game, and especially if it's a tight end. Tom loves his tight ends. So
yeah, that's been proven in all of the other 10 or 9 Super Bowls that we've seen him play in. Nico, my question for you, what do you think the Chiefs are going to bring into this game offensively? What do you think their scheme is going to be? And why do you think that they're going to attack this Bucs defense that way? And then, Zach, I'll go to you for defense. What do you think the Chiefs' defensive scheme is going to be on Sunday? But, Nico, let's start with you for offense.
I mean, for the offensively, I think they're going to go to Kelce very, very, very early. I think they're going to make sure, because they're going to make sure to get him into the game plan, see what the matchup against Levante David and Devin White is going to look like, see if you have to go to McCole Hardman more or see Tyreek Hill. People forget that matchup against the Buccaneers. Tyreek Hill, I believe, had 200 yards in the first half. I mean, if he does any of that on Sunday, we're seeing a blowout. You have to, the Buccaneers have to slow down Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs are going to take the route of seeing what Darrell Williams and seeing what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has for you. Because if we don't remember, Damian Williams had a great game in the Super Bowl last year. And although Tyreek Hill had the big play, he was one of the leaders for that team. And I honestly, no one saw that coming last year. And this year, I think we see something similar. I think the Buccaneers are going to worry about Tyreek Hill so much that it's going to come down to Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, and Darrell Williams to win this game. I think it's going to be inside the tackles and in the short pass game, not the long pass game. Because the last thing the Bucs want to do is make sure Tyreek Hill beats you over the top like he did again in week whatever it was. So I see Bieniemy changing things up and seeing what they have from that running back core, and seeing what that matchup against Travis Kelce is going to look like, and see where they go from there. Because Patrick Mahomes can sling it all he wants. I think when it comes down to if Tyreek Hill is being like double teamed or whatever it may be, then you got to see McCole Hardman. You got to see I forgot his name, but he has 2 last names. They have a bunch of Robinson. I forgot his first name. I know he had a big touchdown against the Broncos, but yeah, they have weapons on the offensive end that they're going to use. But like I said, I think it's going to be similar to last year's Super Bowl. You see the running game get more into play because when it comes to Super Bowl, having possession last sometimes wins you the game, and having the time of possession more than your other team, and having Patrick Mahomes on the field rather than Tom Brady on the field will give you an advantage.
Yeah, I think that the good thing about the Chiefs offense is they have plenty of weapons. So if you try and shut one down, they can just basically like a shark's tooth, pop another one right back up. Zach, the Chiefs defensive wise, how are they going to attack Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense?
Well, honestly, it's going to come down to if they'll be the first team to actually get on pressure on Brady this postseason. That's something that's kind of surprised me so far. Is I was expecting one of these 2 teams that they have played, whether it was Washington, whether it was Green Bay, to realistically get to Tom Brady and sack him consistently or get at him. Steve Spagnuolo obviously has been in this scenario before when he was with the Giants, so he knows how to create pressure. He's very sneaky, if you will, as a defensive coordinator. It's a middling defense for the Chiefs, but it's one that's opportunistic. And Tom Brady, if we're talking about not just getting pressure, Tom Brady also gives presence. He has been the last 2 years. I understand he threw 40 touchdowns this year. For those that are Brady fanatics, I get it. But the guy also threw 12 picks in the regular season. He threw 3 picks against Green Bay. Should have thrown 4, mind you. He gives away gifts, and he did it against Kansas City as well. If you generate some pressure, or if you just, wait for him to throw a little too short or a little too far, there's going to be a present for him. That's the thing. Steve Spagnuolo is able to generate the pressure. He's been very sneaky with blitzes, whether it's with Tyrann Mathieu, whether it's with using someone like a Hitchens or Jerry Sneed in place, just having to send someone. You just have to hope that those guys, whenever they send a blitz, or a Chris Jones and Frank Clark, can get to him fast enough. Otherwise, your biggest X factor, if you are able to contain some of the passing, is really the run game. It's the kryptonite for the most part of the Kansas City Chiefs. Their run defense is on the lower tier of the NFL's rankings. They're going to have to shore it up because Leonard Fournette has been a presence this postseason, a lot more than he was in regular season. They're getting a lot more churned. And as we were talking, the Bucs have a lot of weapons, but if you find some way to get to Brady in particular, Byron Leftwich is going to focus on the run. He's known for doing it. He sometimes leans on it as kind of a crutch, if you will, for being a systematic run first down and so on and so forth. But if you're able to somewhat take away Tom Brady and get pressure on him, get a few of those opportunistic moments, that offense that you have on the opposite side should handle most of its work. I mean, I know that the Bucs have been playing a little more edge as of late, but Mahomes is on a different level and is, as usual, playing with weapons that can go with yak yards, mind you, from a 5-yard catch to a 15-yard completion, if you will. Defensively, they just have to contain enough and take the opportunities when they can, unlike the Green Bay Packers 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, I think one of the easiest game plans that you can come up with for a defense, just hold them to enough points that our offense can outscore them, which for them is like 35 at minimum, basically what we've seen from Kansas City. So it's a good situation to be in. We'll talk more about the Bucs. So the questions that I asked you guys. So DJ and Kelcey, you'll do the Buccaneers offensive and defensive scheme when we come back from break. And then Zach and Nico, I'll ask you guys about X factors for offense and defense. But we're going to go into a break, listen to our partners, Fanatics, Fubo TV for the Unhinged Sports Network. Be sure to check out those links in all of our bios on the website as well, unhingedsn.com. But using those links help out the network quite a bit. and we're growing. We're needing you guys to help out a little bit more. So be sure to check those out. Link trees in all of our bios on social media. With that, we'll be right back with more NFL Unhinged, and keep enjoying you on Super Bowl Sunday. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to NFL Unhinged, the Unhinged Sports Network home for NFL talk. And we did a big breakdown for the Chiefs earlier on. So if you missed that, be sure to catch the replay that will be coming on right after this. But now we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay side. So I asked a series of questions. And so, Zach, I'll start with you for offensive X factor for Tampa Bay for the Buccaneers. Who do you think plays the biggest role in the game on Sunday?
Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, it might sound like I'm copping out, but it really is Tom Brady. I think if we're being honest here, it's going to be what can you do as the most efficient as possible? Because again, 2 weeks prior, we saw Brady throw 3 picks and, defensively was bailed out. But now, I understand Aaron Rodgers only has one talented receiver in Devontae Adams, or sometimes leans on him a bit much. So, Tampa Bay can go at that. But you on the opposite side have to keep up with Patrick Mahomes, which you did that in the previous matchup after the Kansas City Chiefs decided to not take advantage of you throwing 2 picks. You have to throw basically no interceptions and cause no turnovers is the thing. And you better also be the best field general you can be in this scenario, which in his history, he's proven that. I believe that this is the case. Just, it's simply don't give the Chiefs any opportunities to take advantage of your scenario and don't get behind. Keep up with them. It's been the case, I would say, when we've talked about with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this postseason, like against New Orleans Saints, something that they did in their third matchup, they were able to keep up. They took advantage of opportunities as they came. Green Bay, they went ahead, stayed ahead, even though he made some miscues and opportunities for Aaron Rodgers and company. In this case, you cannot do that again. So my advice is make mistake-free football. And if you're able to get the run game going early and you can see openings early, go with that as much as you can, and then hit when you have the Chiefs defense off balance. So get the run started, but I think your X factor, as much as it sounds like a cop-out, is going to be Tom Brady.
It does sound like a cop-out, but you got to remember he is a multiple-time Super Bowl MVP, and obviously he's won it 6 times, going for his 7th ring in 10 tries. It sounds stupid when you say it like that. Nico, defensive X factor for Tampa Bay, very talented defense. So there's a lot of ways that you can go. But what do you think? Who do you think is going to be the biggest X factor for the Tampa Bay defense?
I mean, I said it when I talked about the Chiefs' offense. The X factors are going to be Devin White and Levante David. What we're going to see from the Chiefs team is you have to slow down Travis Kelce. You have to be able to make sure to keep Travis Kelce and keep Tyreek Hill in check. If you don't keep either of them in check and either one of them go for 150 yards, it's going to be a long day. You have to make the Chiefs beat you outside of those 2 players. Make Patrick Mahomes throw to McCole Hardman. Make Darrell Williams, make Clyde Edwards-Helaire beat you. That's the way you got to see it. That front 7 for Tampa Bay is one of the best in the NFL for a reason. If JPP and Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, the list goes on and on, that front 7, if they're able to slow down and keep Mahomes in the pocket and not have a bunch of time and make him throw the ball to McCole Hardman, whatever it may be, and not to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, that's how the Buccaneers can win this game. The matchup with Travis Kelce, having Antoine Winfield back this week over the top is going to help, but it's going to rely heavily on Devin White. Devin White was one of the fastest linebackers in the game, but Travis Kelce is a fat tight end, like you like to say, Jimmy.
Fat receiver.
Sorry, fat receiver. I'm an idiot. Wow, fat receiver. But he's a big, imposing will, and we haven't seen a tight end like this since prime Gronk. And obviously Gronk being on the side, prime Gronk, or the defense just had no answer for him. And the Buccaneers need to have an answer for those 2 players and trying to get them off the field. The one thing with the Broncos that made them so successful against the Chiefs, obviously we didn't win, but we got the game at least close, was that you forced them to kick field goals. Don't let them get in the end zone. And when they're inside the 30-yard line, force them to take 3 instead of 6. That way you can trust your offense to get you back in this game and making sure that Chiefs offense can stay off the field. Give your defense rest as much as possible. That's where the offense comes into play. Give that defense rest and force red zone appearances to make them kick the field goal instead of go for 6. That's the way you win this game, and that's the way you keep this offense in check. Because, like we said, this offense is one of the most one of the most overpowered offenses we've seen in recent history. What they can do wherever they can beat you wherever they want. And being able to slow them down to only taking 3 instead of 6, I think that's the most important case here for the Bucs.
Yeah, DJ, I know you talk about Devin White a lot. You mentioned how he runs a 4.340 and everything like that. So defensively, how do you think you can? What would you do if you were the defensive coordinator to try and slow down this Kansas City Chiefs defense? And is there a way to stop them?
I think the biggest thing they got to do is keep both safeties at least 15 to 20 yards off the line the entire game. I think anytime the Chiefs have played a single high cover 3, cover 1 style team this year, they have ran absolutely ballistic on them. We look at like what they did to the Ravens, a really good defense by all means. Patrick Mahomes went absolutely ballistic on them. I think he threw 5 touchdowns, 400 yards, something absolutely ridiculous and insane. And you look at the games that they've quote unquote struggled against the Broncos, for example, in 1 week. The Broncos played 2 safeties back the entire time, made them be methodical, work their way down the field. That's when the Chiefs get a little bit out of their element. Their specialty isn't death by 1,000 paper cuts. Their specialty is, oh, here's a nuclear howitzer right in your face. So if they can prevent Tyreek Hill from going for 200 yards in the first quarter, make Travis Kelce catch 10 catches for 70 yards instead of 8 for 125, like a fat receiver, basically. Make him play traditional tight end and try and force Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and those guys to basically bang into that top-rated run defense all day. Make the Chiefs beat you slowly, and if they can do that, you kind of have to tip your hat to them, but you can't let them get anything cheap or anything deep. So on the Bucs defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles, I'm putting those 2 back, and I'm trusting Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett against 2 backup tackles, mind you, to just win on their own. You could rush 3 or 4, and then you still have Ndamukong Suh as well, too, who in all rights is still an absolute freak of nature. Vita Vea came back a couple weeks ago and looked pretty good. They can just send 4 and drop everybody back. Let Devin White and Levante David roam with their stupid fast selves. This should not be genetic. You can't run that fast and be that big. It's not fair. Just let them do that and cover anything underneath. Keep everybody deep. Basically, don't do what you did in the first matchup and keep everyone deep. If you can do that, I think you have a chance. Because you know Brady and the offense is going to find some way to get points on the board. They're going to be able to be methodical if they need to. It's the Tom Brady specialty. See if you can force the Chiefs to basically play that game instead of bombs away.
Nothing deep, nothing cheap. I like it. You should be an advertising agent or something, or make T-shirts, because that would be a hell of a T-shirt. Maybe that's what you guys put in your Teespring next time.
That's pretty much how I get a first date usually. So
there you go. And I just want to point this out, by the way. We talk about prime Gronk. Gronk and Travis Kelce are both 31. I saw that picture on Facebook a little bit earlier. They're the same age. I don't know how that they're in such different places in their career. Kelce, once you get composed, because DJ Poppy pretty good. Go ahead.
That was something else, DJ. I didn't expect that bomb to be dropped immediately. That explains why your Tinder game's so fire. But all right, bud. But no, man. So for the Bucs offense, you talked about the Chiefs defense, Chiefs offense being, a howitzer in your face. The opposite side is completely true for the Bucs. They're death by 1,000 cuts. Tom Brady is one of the most efficient guys when he gets the ball out of his hands quick. He is not afraid to, as soon as the ball touches his hands, to be throwing a quick out route, to be throwing a quick slant, an underneath route, bubble screens, if you will. And he has the weapons to do it. And that's exactly what the Bucs need to focus on. Zach mentioned getting the run game going early. In Tom Brady's most successful Super Bowls, he's had a run game in all of them. You think about the Sony Michel, where Sony Michel probably should have got MVP of the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, they gave it to Brady instead. But personal choices, I guess. I look at that as a perfect game plan, really, for what this Bucs team needs to do to beat this Chiefs team, because the run defense is so middle of the pack to lackluster for the Chiefs that if Leonard Fournette and his "I'll get you 3 every time" can get 3 and then maybe eventually get 3 in a cloud of dust, like he did even last week too. You'll get you a nice little 20-yard touchdown run when you're not expecting it. And then on top of that, you mentioned Ronald Jones is absolutely fantastic, having a career year. Maybe he continues that as well. If they can get those guys going, this team is really deadly. And then you easily get that Chiefs defense sneaking forward, and a guy like Dan Sorensen, who I mentioned as an X factor for the Chiefs defense, he can also be a liability because he does like to sneak into the box and lay hits, as we saw against the Browns. He has no issue sticking his helmet in there and trying to go make a hit. Tyrann Mathieu the same way. He tries to be a little bit too smart sometimes, and if they sneak a little too close, don't be surprised to see Antonio Brown, Godwin over the top, Scotty Miller, you name it, on a nice little play action, that little play action power they run that somehow, some way, Tom Brady always has a guy open. It never makes sense. And on top of that, if all else fails, Mike Evans on a back shoulder throw is always a go-to. I mean, literally, you can just throw it at the guy and he's going to catch it over everybody. And I'm leaving out the tight ends because they're more fat receivers as well than they are tight ends. I mean, Gronk was the prime example of a fat receiver before Travis Kelce.
He blocked pretty well.
Before the back injury, yeah.
Yes.
Nowadays it's I run straight very fast, and even that's not even that fast anymore. Cameron Brate is one of the most athletic tight ends I've ever seen as far as just what he is. He really is a fat tight end or fat receiver. He runs routes like a receiver and he gets in his breaks. They love to run on a 10-yard dig pattern that I think when Tom Brady throws, he's like 85 to 90% successful on that route. And it's a second option route. It's like usually there's an outside route and then it's that 10-yard dig to Cameron Brate, and it's always successful. So if nothing else, just check down, and Captain check down himself. Tom Brady is efficient enough to do that, and I think that's what it all comes down to: just efficiency, playing quick, and getting the run game going. It seems very simple, but all things are simpler said than done.
Honestly, I think we're on the verge of a great matchup because a lot of people forget. Yeah, you can see the 200 yards in the first half for Tyreek Hill and think that Kansas City blew them out. It was 27-24. They didn't score in the second half, really, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers had just almost enough to come back and make a huge run at it. So, honestly, the only squad, if you're going to go break down each side's offense and defense, the only one that's not towards the top of the league is the Chiefs defense. They're a little bit further down, but the Bucs have a top tier defense, top tier offense now with Tom Brady and not having a quarterback throw 30 interceptions. And we all know about the Chiefs offense. It's just absolutely incredible. So we're going to have a very, very exciting matchup. And now that brings us to probably everybody's favorite part of the show. We haven't had to pick them in a couple weeks because there was no game to pick. We could have done the virtual Pro Bowl, but that was just a sad.
Who ended up winning that?
I don't even know.
You pay attention to it.
Guarantee you there's no one that watched that
Madden
game.
Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know. But we have the pick'em coming back. So let's go ahead and we'll start with the number rankings. And I have them here. So for a guy who's going to take the Wonderlick, Kelcey had a hell of a postseason. 16 points total, and he's the only person to get both championship games correct, which is why he jumped out to such a big lead, because those games were worth 5 points apiece. We did 1 point for wild card, 1 point for divisional, 5 points for championship games, and now the Super Bowl is worth 10 points. So Kelcey, you're in first for the postseason. Following right behind you is Jim. He's had a pretty decent postseason at 13 points. I'll have his pick since he wasn't able to join us today. After him is Zach. Zach started off really hot, and I think you were 6 of 8 in wild card weekend, and now fighting there with 8 points. So you got a little bit of ground to make up here. You can still win it if you pick opposite of Kelcey and get the Super Bowl champion right. DJ with 6, our regular season champion, self-proclaimed crowned king, has 6 points. And then my co-host on the far end of the bench, Nico, sitting there with 5. Not been a solid postseason for him. But hey, like I said, 10 points on the line for the Super Bowl. If you pick opposite, if you have an island, there's a heavy reward for island picks this weekend. We'll start with Jim's pick just so that we can get it in, and then I'll give these guys their space to talk about what they see happening going on. Jim is going with the Bucs, and his reasoning is he's not going to pick against Brady this postseason. It'll be an epic game. It'll be an epic game. Kansas City takes the lead. Mahomes will score a late touchdown and take the lead, but then Brady will lead the Bucs back to a game-winning field goal. Tampa Bay 33, Kansas City 31, and we'll throw in. We can make our prediction for MVP. He has MVP as Antonio Brown. So there's a lot that I don't agree with out of that statement. It sucks that I have the same name as him, so it technically sounds like it's coming out of my mouth. But I promise you, that's Jim Renee J-Dash. That's who said that. That's not how I feel this game is going to go. You got to go back and listen to the far end of the bench and hear how I think this game is going to go, because I'm not making my pick. But, gentlemen, we can only go up from here.
I mean, even when he's not here, we still get 6 shades of Brady. Can we just ban him from talking about all things Brady for one episode?
I think Brady's got to retire before that happens.
Oh, goodness.
All right, let's I'll go in descending order. So Kelcey, you are the champion. Give me your prediction, score. So winner, score, and MVP for the Super Bowl 55.
All right, so I've been talking about this since my preseason predictions. It's our DJ and I's preseason predictions. I had this pick way back then that it was going to be Chiefs Bucks. Didn't think the Bucks were going to lose as many games as they did, but they did, and we're still here anyways. But my whole philosophy behind this is the NFL is a storyline league, right? Everybody knows that. One of the biggest storylines is Tom Brady to the Bucks. Second biggest storyline is Patty Mahomes being the next face of the NFL. What better way to send that off than to have Patty Mahomes meeting Tom Brady for a Super Bowl and Patty Mahomes winning and the quote-unquote passing of the torch. And that's kind of what I have going on here. I do have the Chiefs winning, but it's not from a Patty Mahomes performance. I actually have it because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire performance. I have him going with 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and getting MVP. I'll go ahead and tell you that now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is my Super Bowl MVP. I've had that, again, since the preseason. Final score, though, in this one, it's going to be close, but it's going to be 35, 30, 32 is what I have it finishing at. And it's going to be just one of those things. It's going to look like a blowout, but the Bucs are going to nickel and dime their way back in it and make it a lot closer than they should. And it'll be at the end of the game, the opposite of the Green Bay Tampa Bay game, where Kansas City has a chance to either score or run the clock out or kick a field goal, and they're going to take the option and go for the win, and they're going to get it. Unlike Green Bay, and they're deciding to kick a field goal at the worst time possible and give the best guy in the league a chance to run the clock out. So give me the Chiefs, 35-32. Give me Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my Super Bowl MVP with a performance to remember for the young rookie at LSU, just to cap off his great 2 seasons back to back.
Yeah, I don't know the stats on how many rookies have been Super Bowl MVP, but that would be a hell of a accolade for that guy for early on in his career like that, and plus being on the greatest offense in college football history. Don't at me about that.
Now the greatest offense in NFL history potentially,
possibly. So that I don't mind any of those picks. I think I'll just go ahead and put it out there. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think that Tampa Bay is just not going to have enough to come back from, and Kansas City is going to come out to a huge lead because they've been there before. But Zach, you're the next in the order. So what are your predictions for Sunday, Super Bowl 55?
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you one thing about the matchup earlier this season. I thought the Kansas City Chiefs could have closed that game out pretty easy. Remember, they were not only winning big at the time going into the third quarter, they had also picked off Tom Brady in 2 separate drives out of 3. They had chances to close that game out early, and they did not. Again, Steve Spagnuolo, he knows Tom Brady. This is a guy that's beat him before with the New York Giants. This guy knows his tendencies. This guy knows how to rattle him. And that's what's going to be the key. I really think this will be closer, though. This will not be a sense where it's going to be Brady trying to catch back up or you're giving him chances like you did earlier on in the year. This will be a game that's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down, I think, to one final drive where you'll be down by 6. But I have a feeling that it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. That's my honest opinion. I think that this is a fireball offense right now. And remember, not only do you get Le'Veon Bell back, you get who I think is going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl, Sammy Watkins, the hero of the Super Bowl last year himself. Some people seem to forget that he had 99 yards in that game against the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm wondering if the Tampa Bay Bucks secondary underestimates how healthy he is or how much an impact he will bring to take off pressure from Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. He'll be the one guy that's one of the most experienced on there to then help others like, say, a McCole Hardman, a Demarcus Robinson, if you will. So I'm going to go with Sammy Watkins as the MVP. I think that just like Kelce said, this is a passing the torch game. It will not be a blowout. This will be a fun game, in my opinion, one that we'll be talking about for years to come, I think. And that's been coming through the last 2 weeks. I actually early on after the championship games thought this would be a shoe-in for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it helps the Bucs that Eric Fisher is not going to be playing as a starting tackle. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of an edgy defense from Tampa Bay this time around. That's going to be opportunistic earlier on and more often than it was again this first matchup. 30-24 is the final score. Kansas City walks away as the first back-to-back winner since the 03-04 New England Patriots squads.
Yeah, that's an insane stat to think about. That's the last time anybody's repeated a Super Bowl champion was 2003, 2004, and it was Tom Brady. So the passing of the torch storyline basically wrote itself after the championship weekend. DJ, you're in the next position, 4th place. Depending on how Nico picks, if it's opposite of yours, you have the chance to join Kelcey and I for the Wonderlick test after the season is over. But What are your predictions for Sunday in the Super Bowl matchup?
It's a tough one for me to pick because when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I feel like they have the best roster top to bottom in the NFL. When you just go down the marks, like every single player is like an 80 plus overall if we were going to give them markings. Where the Chiefs have like 4, 5, 6, 90, 95 guys, but then there's a lot of spots where they start to whittle down a little bit. But at the same time, those players at the top for Kansas City are literally that good. And Tampa Bay, despite getting to the Super Bowl, every single playoff game, it's been like meh. Against Washington, a backup quarterback with a destroyed shoulder nearly beat them. Against New Orleans, they were kind of getting smacked early until Deontay Harris got hurt, and then Drew Brees went full dipshit and went colorblind. And then against Green Bay, they were struggling basically the entire second half. Brady threw 3 picks, and they scored 6 points off him. So something about Tampa Bay, I know they're here and they're this far, but they haven't looked great. So I'm going with Kansas City. Tom Brady's never been in a blowout Super Bowl, winning or losing. The biggest differential is 10 points in his last one against the Rams because Jared Goff could only muster 3 points. And it took the Patriots 10 fourth quarter points to even get that lead. So I'm going to say that the Chiefs win. It's close, like 34-30, something like that. Maybe like a late explosion from both teams piles up the score. But I think it's going to be a little uglier defensively, like a 13-10 halftime score. And I'm going to say Tyrann Mathieu somehow pulls off Super Bowl MVP because that'd be perfect 2020 to see a defensive player get Super Bowl MVP in a year where we're talking nothing but quarterbacks for MVP, all the awards, and all the offseason. Say Tyrann Mathieu gets like a pick, a forced fumble, a tackle for loss. Just makes a few big plays and everyone basically eats it up and votes him for MVP. And Patty has a good game, but not a Patty game, to say the least. And Tom Brady keeps it close because it's Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It's impossible to blow him out. They'll do just enough. Somehow Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell get in the end zone and rub it in the Steelers' faces too. Just add a little spice on it.
There we go. I think that all those things are very high on the possibility list. Nico, is Jim going to be on an island for Super Bowl week, or are you going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win, go against your pick that you made on our show on Wednesday? What do you have happening to close out?
First of all, I think, can I propose something? Can I say we do, if you get the Super Bowl MVP right, you get like a +3 points? Because I think there's a better shot for more movement around. Because I think that could make things a little more interesting. But because I mean, I'm not going to be an idiot here. It's either going to be Jim or I as the one taking the Wonderlick test, because I'm going the Chiefs here as well. And I mean, for my Super Bowl MVP, I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes though. Like I said, I think obviously they like to usually pick a different guy outside of the Super Bowl MVP being the quarterback, but I think Patrick Mahomes is just going to have an outstanding day. I do think, however, we are going to see a game that is similar to the Packers game the week before. I think the Buccaneers get out to a lead. And I think we see a comeback from Patrick Mahomes. And we see a comeback where the game gets to 28-28. And we see a game-winning field goal by Harrison Butker. And we have the confetti flying and a game-winning field goal by Harrison Butker with the Chiefs.
And another Super Bowl parade in Kansas City, Missouri.
Hey, I'm just saying this also so they can get all the Super Bowls out of the way. So hopefully 5 years from now, they will suck. Hopefully that they get their championship window all they can out of it, and then it doesn't continue on for another 15 years. So give me the Chiefs. I think everyone hit the nail on the head. The Buccaneers, if the Buccaneers team from the second half played last like they did against the Packers, they have no shot in this game. They have 0 shot in this game. If we see the Buccaneers team from the first half against the Packers, then we have a game. But the Chiefs are not the Packers. They actually have weapons outside their quarterback and top receiver. They actually have a good running game that is consistent. They have the best tight end in the league. They have one of the best receivers in the game, Tyreek Hill. They have the weapons. This is a Chiefs game to lose. The Buccaneers. I'll probably be rooting for the Buccaneers, all honestly, because I want to see I like seeing new teams win the Super Bowl, even though it's Tom Brady. But it's hard for me to pick against the Chiefs and what they have over there because I think that they have their weaknesses, but I think top to bottom this is the best team in football. I think the talent wise they have outmatches everyone in this league, and what we've seen from week 1, this is the best team in football, and I think they're going to take this game.
It's a very real possibility. And Jim, you are correct now. So if Jim gets it, the Buccaneers, Nico will take the Wonderlick with Kelcey and I. If the Buccaneers lose, which everybody else on the show believes that they will, then Jim will join Kelcey and I in the Wonderlick test. So either way, I think that we're going to have a fair deal of CTE to deal with when we're taking the Wonderlick test between whoever's going to be taking it. I know myself is riddled with it.
Yeah, you can.
I'm going to pat myself on the back for keeping the math for the entire season on this show. It was very difficult. I was very frustrated through most of it. But it's going to be an interesting, be on the lookout for that video because the Wonderlick test video will be funny.
Yeah, either way, that YouTube video is going to be fire. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be
Jimmy's
hilarious.
the real MVP for getting the math correct. That's what I'm gonna say.
You want to know the worst part, Jimmy?
Performance.
There's math on the Wonderlick test. I just learned that, and I am not looking forward to that either.
I was hoping
go ahead and just
essay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, God.
But that's going to be, we're going to wrap up the show. I'll give the guys their chances to plug their shows. And let's start with Zach. Where can you listen to Gridiron Gallery, and where can they find you on Beyond the Press Box?
Oh, yes. The two big shows I am on. You can find Gridiron Gallery on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ZK Podcast. That is at ZKPOD. CST or CAST. Ugh, weird. Beyond the Press Box is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. It's kind of weird. I'm the one. Well, actually, we're going on Instagram later, but we're on Facebook and Twitter. Find us particularly on Twitter though at Beyond the Press 2. That is Beyond the Press 2, and you can find us all there. And of course, I'm on this show too, so catch us for other editions.
Yeah, this is going to be the last regular episode, but we'll have a few off-season episodes probably around the draft. Free agency, combine, stuff like that. So this will be the last regular season episode, but there's still going to be more NFL Unhinged coming at you. I'll go to the Kelcey now for High Low Sports. Tell us where they can find you guys and check out your content that you're putting out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always on every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time on the Unhinged Sports Network. You can find us there. If you don't happen to catch us live, we go live on Anchor or Apple's podcast or Spotify or all that good stuff. Every streaming network, literally, we're on them at this point in time under High Low Sports. That's Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We go live there. We also have a website, highlowsportspodcast.com. Or, most importantly, you can keep up to date for everything we talk about, all the shit talking we do on Twitter at high_low_sports. And yes, we do a lot of shit talking because why would we not? At this point in time, it makes things entertaining. So why not? And also be sure, if you're checking out this episode, we will be doing a live stream of the Super Bowl coming up later today. So obviously check that out as well.
Yeah, that is going to be both on YouTube and then also streamed through Colorcast. So another one of our partners on the Unhinged Sports Network, Colorcast. The link is also on the website, in our pages, in our bios. You download the app through that link. Even if you have it, delete it, download it through that link. That helps out the network as well. It kicks a little bit of money back there. DJ, good luck on your Colorcast tonight. I know the people listening to this show either missed it or didn't get the chance, but I enjoyed listening to you guys last week. So good luck on your Colorcast tonight.
Thanks, guys. It should be a fun one. And most importantly, we won't be riddled with injuries tonight like we were last week. So we won't be picking up guys off the street trying to remember their names. So thumbs up for health.
Yeah, you got the Phoenix Suns game without Devin Booker last week. So I know that was probably disappointing. Nico, where can they find the far end of the bench and all that good stuff? And then I'll let them know where they can listen to the network. But go ahead and plug the far end of the bench.
Of course, Jimmy and I, far to the bench, located out of Denver, Colorado. We're on the network at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, which is 1 o'clock Eastern. All of our episodes comes out on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the good stuff directly after the show airs. Then Thursday, we're on the YouTube channel. This might be the last time you see the NFL Hinge on the far end of the bench YouTube, because we're trying to grow the Unhinged YouTube. So hit that subscribe button on the far end of the bench or YouTube, and then when we put this on over, go hit the Unhinged Sports Network YouTube page. Go hit that up. I know we didn't talk about this a whole lot, but want to give a shout out because it reveals tonight that they were recording this. Peyton Manning being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Got to give a quick shout out to him. He did a lot of great things to the city of Denver, and I heard it took the voters 13 seconds to decide on whether he got in. So I'm very, very excited to hear about all that. If you guys want to hear some good Peyton stories, me and Jimmy just dropped a great episode with his right guard in the Super Bowl 50, and then also he was there for Super Bowl 48 with Luis Vasquez. So don't be sure to check that out. It's on our YouTube page now. So if you guys want to go check that out, and then if you want to check it out on Anchor, Spotify, all that good stuff, it's there. But I would highly recommend, if you're listening to NFL Unhinged right now, go look at High Low Sports, go look at Beyond the Press Box, go look at the Gridiron Gallery, go look at Jay Dash's shows because we all had Super Bowl shows that came out earlier this week. Be sure to go listen back to all that because, I mean, we only gave our brief synopsis of what we thought about the game, but each one of us all had on our shows a great in-depth look at all of it. So if you thought I was an idiot at what I said and you like what Kelcey said, be sure to go check out the High Low Sports stuff or go chirp me at what I said earlier on in the week because it's Super Bowl week. What gets better than this? It's one of the best weeks of the year, and I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, and follow the social media accounts for the Far End of the Bench at FEOTB Pod, and it has a link tree. All of our different stuff is in our bio. For Jim, I'll go ahead and plug his show, the J-Dash Show, Mondays and Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern in the afternoon. Him and Carlos, the wrestling movie guy, have a show that they release episodes twice a week. And then you can follow them on Twitter at the J-Dash Show and at Wrestling Movie G for Carlos, for him and his co-host. The network, you can follow on Twitter at Network Unhinged, at UnhingedSN, unhingedsn.airtime.pro for 24/7 coverage. And just all the different podcasts that are on the network. You can find their schedules on their social media profiles or the website itself. But there's plenty of great content whenever you want to tune in. If you need a little bit of a break, and it's not all sports. We have wrestling, pro wrestling. I know Jim and Carlos talk about a lot of entertainment, but there's plenty of stuff to keep you guys for anything that you want to listen to on the Unhinged Sports Network. Plus this show, 3 in the Key, the NBA show, 2 for Chirping, the Unhinged Hockey Show, Unhinged FC, the soccer show that Kelcey just started with Insert Name FC podcast is going now. So there's plenty of content. This is the last episode of the season for NFL Unhinged, but it's definitely not the last Unhinged show. So be sure to follow along now, continue to grow with us. Look at the links in our sponsors below, and we'll let you guys know when a new episode of NFL Unhinged is coming out. But for now, enjoy the Super Bowl, and let's have a great offseason, and we'll see you guys next year in 2021 for NFL Unhinged.